Hello my friends and welcome back to a Broken Man plays Subnautica Deathrun on the hardest settings.
And me.
So if you guys haven't seen part 1, I highly recommend you check it out. We will be playing the Deathrun mod on its hardest settings. This means a level of difficulty way above anything encountered in the vanilla experience, and of course on top of that, we're gonna be playing in hardcore mode, so if I die, I have to start everything over. Will this break my sanity? Yes! Let's jump in. Now, last time we finished, I was at the Aurora, about to embark in. So I set off to go fix the ship. Now this was terrifying. The increased creature aggression meant that a Reaper could come charging at me at any point. And of course, because of all the effects on my screen, I could not see a thing. I discovered this feature where if you press escape to pause the game, you actually can see a little bit more, but this did not help all that much. Now it didn't even take me that long to get into the ship, but soon I realized that the amount of oxygen I had on me was simply not enough. It would essentially take me about half of my oxygen supply just to even make it into the ship, and so there would be literally zero chance of me fixing it and then coming back before I suffocate. With this knowledge, I was unfortunately forced to turn around and leg it back out before I died. Of course, Mr. Reaper was very happy to make my acquaintance. Look at that guy. That increased aggression is so bad, I'm telling you. But yeah, that mission was not successful. Right, so at this point, I wasn't quite sure what to do. I did find this time capsule in the mushroom forest, which had a lot of really good stuff. Thank you so much. I got charged by the sand shark, and then I went about scanning anything useful around the forest. With the laser cutter, I was able to cut my way into some wrecks, and then I decided I would simply need more oxygen. Now, this took me to the island and into the sparse reef, where you can find the blueprint for the ultra high capacity tank. Of course, here you can see my classic strategy of placing down a deep vertical pipe to get oxygen as deep as possible. Exploring at this depth was extremely difficult. I could barely see a thing. And of course, because of the nitrogen accumulation, I had to make sure I had enough oxygen to very slowly surface. I did find another time capsule though. After a bit of trial and error, I managed to find the life pod of Officer Keen. And next to it, the data box for the ultra high capacity tank. And somehow I even managed to make it out of there. Now I did linger around the wreck in the area for a bit as well, looking for anything useful. There I found some stuff for the Cyclops, as well as some blueprints for the thermal plant. This would probably come in handy later. Oh yeah, and also a torpedo arm for the prawn suit. I do not even want to imagine how difficult that will be to craft. I did also manage to complete the modification station blueprint here though, which would be very important if I wanted those high capacity tanks. Man, I gotta say, I always just forget how beautiful this game can be. It has aged like fine wine and still looks freaking amazing to this day. What a video game. Back in my base, I was able to build the modification station, and there I was able to start building some ultra high capacity tanks. And then I went to the mushroom forest, where a certain creature with a certain amount of brain damage decided to attack me, and not attack me once, but it decided to glitch out in a way where the single attack counted for 2 hits, and I died. Yeah, that just like that. I wasn't even recording at this point. This wasn't like a big event. This wasn't a challenging trip of some sort. This was literally a sand shark bugging sideways into me, giving me 2 hits of damage and instantly killing me. No, it's alright, it's alright. I'm not mad. I'm not mad. This is not a big deal. I'm not mad. Now, after a few business days of deep contemplation, I started out a new run. So, we got the close call start this time. And right away, I had the feeling that this time, I could do things a bit better and more competently. Now, as per usual, the lifebot started sinking right away, and it sank deep. See, this start is called a close call, because you are very close to falling straight down into the jelly shroom caves. The lifebot literally lands on the tiny bridge connecting the 2 chasms. Now right off the bat, I swam around collecting stuff, forgetting for a second how little oxygen I had. and how much energy each thing I crafted would cost. Right away, I made myself an O2 tank, as well as a scanner, which would help me with any blueprints I find. Of course, didn't have any batteries inside, but that's just par for course at this point. Soon enough, I was able to build myself a floating pump. Oh yeah, not enough power. There it is. And after that, I had a bit of a brain fart and built another scanner. Why I did this, no idea, but you know, whatever. With a bit of silicone rubber, I was able to build myself a knife. And soon enough, I built some pipes to complete the pump. With all that equipped, it was time to surface from down over 100 meters deep all the way to the top to gain easy access to the surface. As you can see, I still had to surface very, very slowly, though at this point, I was pretty used to that. At the surface, I replenished my oxygen and then decided to head toward the safe shallows. Also, if you're curious where on the map I was at this point, well, my life pod landed right here. With some newly gathered resources, I was able to build a repair tool. I loaded it up with a new battery, and I was able to fix my life pod, which was really nice. I also built me a pair of fins to traverse the world faster, and then I built a high-capacity O2 tank, just for a bit more safety while diving. Now, I wasn't gonna repeat the mistake with not having ingredients for the radiation suit like last time, so this time, I started prepping early. Also, as I swam around, I started gathering some blueprints for the mobile vehicle bay, and I built myself another high-capacity O2 tank just to have some backup air. And then it was time for the Aurora to explode. This comes at you quickly. Now at this point, I also thought to dive down into the jelly shroom caves for some extra resources. Of course, I forgot that by default, you actually have a crash depth of 200 meters. And so, soon enough, I was reminded of this when my character started taking on damage from the pressure. Yeah, I would need that radiation suit first. I did get some lithium and stuff though, and then it was finally time. Now, luckily my life pod was actually below the 100 meter mark, so I would be safe enough staying inside of it. And then the ship exploded, everything shook, and radiation enveloped the world. Luckily, I already had all the resources on me, so in record time, I built the radiation suit, and there it was on. Much calmer than last time. Now, with this suit, I was able to dive down and collect a whole bunch of magnetite, as well as some diamonds. With my new equipment, I built a habitat builder. As you can see, I'm quite excited about it. And with this bad boy, I was able to swim back into the safe shallows and establish a base there. This would be really nice since I was starting to really struggle with the limited power that the life pod has. Now, in my new base, I was able to build a fabricator, and then I proceeded to add a whole bunch of solar panels. Now that's more like it. Of course, for storage, it was necessary to add a few lockers, and then I went about scanning some more useful blueprints, such as for the Sea Glide. Also found some laser cutter pieces, which is very nice. I did have to do this ring around a rosy dance with the biters, because they just would not leave me alone after the increased aggression came in. After a bit of work, I was finally able to complete the Sea Glide blueprint, and soon after that, I was able to also get the full mobile vehicle bay. One of the wrecks within happened to hold a compass. After narrowly dodging the local wildlife and having some flashbacks, I was able to complete the laser cutter blueprint as well, which I then proceeded to promptly build since I already had all the resources. After that, I built another high-capacity O2 tank, and then I went to the massive wreck in the grassy plateaus, where I got a whole lot of useful stuff such as the modification station, as well as the battery charger. Now at this point, I had to do another trip down into the jelly shroom caves, but as you can see, the big snake charged at me very, very quickly. I was luckily able to circle strafe around it, but this was a pretty clear sign that I should not be coming down there to farm lithium, and I should instead go somewhere else. Yet again, I was able to build a modification station in my base, and then just like last time, I made my way to the floating island to dive down for the ultra high capacity tank blueprint. Yeah, let me tell you, it's pretty terrifying diving around here when you cannot see a freaking thing. But luckily, I did eventually manage to find the life pod and snatch the blueprint. At this point, I decided to also make my way onto the island since I was already there to get some blueprints. Got the one for the Ultra Glide fins as well as some useful stuff in the surrounding crates. Back at base, I built those Ultra Glide fins to move a bit faster. And I went about a mushroom forest close to the front of the Aurora, gathering a whole ton of lithium to make those ultra high capacity tanks. Now, as you can see, I had a lot of lithium, which would be just enough to make 3 of these. With that, I was convinced I would have enough oxygen to go fix the Aurora ship. And then it was time to head toward that behemoth. Of course, the first thing would be to build a small base as close to the front as possible, which would act as my quote-unquote base camp for any further expeditions. I did also scan a bunch of stuff along the way. After picking a suitable place that was about as close to the front as I was willing to go, given the Reapers with the increased aggression, I started thinking about how I could improve my approach to the ship. Last time I spent a ton of time just swimming and waiting underwater for the Reaper to swim away. This would waste oxygen and it would waste a ton of time. So, is there any way to fix this? Well, I thought back to a video I did a few months ago, where I did some pretty bad things to my life pod with pipes, and I got a wild idea. It was time to get to work. I deployed the pump and started placing pipes in such a way that they would form a walkway above water. My idea was to build this walkway all the way to the entrance of the Aurora so that I wouldn't ever have to go underwater. Now, this took forever. Here you can see my inventory of pipes. I think in total it might have come to be around 80 pipes. And I'm not gonna bore you with the hours it took me to eventually reach this point. But yeah, soon enough I got it. As you can see here, there are my first steps onto the Aurora. I decided to spend some time extinguishing fire up here and prepping the approachway. And then finally, after all this time from the start, I was ready. Here, I exited the base, and you can see the entire walkway which I assembled. Is this a smart idea? I don't think so. Does it work? Yes. So, you know, it's probably not that stupid either. This incredible bridge, as you can see, brings me all the way to the platform from where you can enter the Aurora. Efficient? No, but safe? Certainly. And I was freaking ready. I had all the gear on me. I had what felt like hours of oxygen left. So all I had to do now was run onto this balcony and drop right over those boxes there where... Excuse me? Unbearable what? So you're telling me that the fire in the Aurora will one-shot you if you have the ultimate Deathrun mod on? Yeah, that's very interesting. You know, there's only one thing I would say about that. I'm gonna say this calmly as I possibly can. Right, so that's that for this episode. I feel like I'm gonna lose my mind. Will I ever come back to this? I might, and you know, frankly, I probably will, but it will likely take me a few business months to recover from this trauma of what is the equivalent of like one in-game month working on this stuff and then losing it twice in essentially the exact same place. So yeah, I really hope you guys enjoyed some of my suffering. If you guys liked this video, maybe consider leaving a like, commenting, or subscribing. All those would be very much appreciated. I want to give a massive shout out to our members, Karyenda, Sander Weinholz, Kronos, Silver Soul, Master Ugwe, OGB, Yusuf Ismail Tatar, R. Robertson, MR, Philip Svoboda, Michael X757, Shitsu, Colin Whaley, and Cody the Bumboy. Thank you guys so much for the support. I could not be any more grateful. That's the end of that video, and I'll see you all in whatever next video I make. Bye bye.